We're basically swimming in an ocean of data. Every single day, we're creating more and more of it. But how do you take all that noise and turn it into a story that actually makes sense? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dive into today, how to pick the perfect chart to make your data sing.
So let's just start with a number that is, well, it's almost impossible to get your head around. By 2025, it's predicted that the world will be creating over 180 zettabytes of data. That is a 180 followed by 21 zeros. It's just a mind-boggling amount of raw information.
And that's the real problem, isn't it? Raw data by itself, it's not all that helpful. A giant spreadsheet with thousands of rows is really just a wall of numbers. The real gold, the actual meaning, is locked inside. So the big question is, how do we find the key?
To figure that out, here's our game plan. First, we'll talk about this data deluge. Then, we'll look at why charts are kind of a universal language. After that, we get to the good stuff, matching the chart to the story. And finally, we'll cover the art of clarity to make sure those stories are told right.
So let's jump in with this idea of the data deluge. We are just collecting more information than ever before, in business, in science, you name it. But just having the data, that doesn't really do anything for us. We need a way to make sense of it, to find the patterns hiding in plain sight.
And this is where visuals become our secret weapon. Charts and graphs are so powerful because they can take these massive, overwhelming data sets and boil them down into a format our brains can actually process, and process really, really fast.
Which brings us to our next point, this idea of visualization as a universal language. I mean, think about it. Our brains are literally hardwired to spot patterns and trends visually. It's so much faster than trying to read a bunch of numbers in a table. A good chart can get a complex idea across almost instantly to just about anyone.
So what even is a data chart? Well, it's just a visual tool for showing your data. But where it really shines is its ability to be universal. It cuts right through the confusing jargon and lets everyone, from different teams or even different fields, have a conversation using the same clear picture.
But here's the thing. You can't just toss your data into any old chart. They're not all the same. As you can see here, they're built for totally different jobs. A bar chart is fantastic for comparing different groups, like sales by region. But a line chart, that's all about showing you trends and changes over time. Different tools for different stories.
And this right here, this is probably the most important part of this whole explainer. Choosing the right chart isn't really about your data, it's about the story you're trying to tell with your data. What's your goal? What's the message? That's what has to drive your choice.
I mean, there are dozens of chart types out there, right? Scatter plots, box plots, heat maps, pie charts, the list goes on and on. So how in the world are you supposed to pick the right one? It can feel a little overwhelming, but luckily, there's a pretty simple framework that can help.
And here it is. This framework simplifies the whole process. It all comes back to your goal. Just look at the table. If your goal is to show how something has changed over time, a line chart is probably your best bet. If you need to show how different pieces make up a whole, a part-to-whole relationship, a pie chart is a classic for a reason. Want to compare values between groups? A bar chart is a great place to start. It's that simple. Figure out your goal in the left column and you'll find your best options in the right.
Okay, let's put this into practice. Let's say your goal is comparing values between groups. A classic bar chart is a great starting point, but the framework can help you get even more specific. What if you need to compare subgroups within each of those categories? Say, sales for 3 different products across several different countries. Well, for that, a grouped bar chart is going to tell that more detailed story perfectly. It's all about picking the tool that gives you the right level of detail.
All right, so you found the perfect chart for your story. Awesome, but you're not quite done yet. The last step is to make sure your design is clean, honest, and actually works. This is what we call the art of clarity.
Here's some super simple but really powerful rules. You absolutely do want to use consistent colors and clear labels. But please, don't use those distracting 3D effects or try to cram way too much data into a single chart. And here's a big one. Avoid color combinations that aren't accessible for people with color vision deficiencies. The goal is always, always to make the insight easy to see.
And if there's one mistake that can instantly make your chart misleading, it's using a truncated axis. This is when you chop off the bottom of the axis, usually by not starting the y-axis at 0 on a bar chart. It makes tiny differences look huge and can completely misrepresent your data. It's a small thing that can really break your audience's trust.
So to quickly run through those common traps one more time. Number 1, picking the wrong chart for your story.
Number 2, using misleading scales, like that truncated axis. And number 3, adding what the DataViz expert Edward Tufte famously called chart junk, any extra fluff that doesn't actually help people understand the data.
So here's the bottom line. Every single decision you make, the chart type, the colors, the labels, it all needs to serve one single purpose: to clearly and honestly highlight the key insights from your data. If it confuses, distracts, or misleads, it's gotta go.
All right, let's wrap this up with the key things to remember. First, always start with a story you want to tell. Second, use that framework we talked about to match your goal to the right chart. Third, design for clarity and honesty. No junk, no tricks. And finally, just remember that when it comes to showing data, simple is almost always better.
At the end of the day, a chart is so much more than just a picture of numbers. It's a way to tell a story. It has the power to change minds, to reveal hidden truths, and to help us make better decisions. So the question I want to leave you with is this: what story is waiting inside your data? And now that you have the tools, how are you going to choose to tell it?